In the previous video, we learned that as the price of a good goes down, the quantity demanded goes up. The cheaper something is, the more likely you are to buy it. But what if there is something that has nothing to do with price that leads to you being more likely to buy a good or service? Think it's a normal day. It's 70 degrees. Somebody comes walking down the street selling bottles of water. How many bottles of water will you purchase at different prices? Maybe $3, $2, $1. Well, let's say they're $1. You maybe will buy a bottle of water, but you maybe not because you're not thirsty because it's only 70 degrees and it's a beautiful day. Now, it's 100 degrees. You're a roofer working on a black roof that is reflecting the heat. The sun is beating down. You are sweating so much that it is pouring off of your face. Now somebody comes down the street selling bottles of water for, we'll say, $3 each. Are you much more likely to buy that bottle of water? Absolutely. And you're probably maybe even going to think about buying 2 or 3. The price hasn't changed. Matter of fact, the price is higher. But you're more likely to buy the bottle of water because something else has changed. An environmental factor has changed. There is something that changes your demand that is not the price. Frosty Boys prices don't change during the year. Or McDonald's or wherever. But they're going to sell a lot more ice cream on a hot, sweltering day, or a day when, say, the Little League baseball teams are playing and they all go as a team to get some ice cream on a beautiful spring night. They sell a lot more ice cream on those days than they do on those cold, cloudy, nasty, rainy days that we tend to have in the spring as well. So the demand for ice cream is going to be higher on a nice day than a cold day. And obviously price does not measure that. So we call that, when that happens, a change in demand. So a change in demand is what happens when there's a change in any factor besides price. So when the price changes, there's a change in quantity demanded. We will slide down the demand curve. But when there is something besides price that changes, that is a change in demand. And we draw a brand new curve because there are now more people or fewer people willing to buy at the same price as before. So there's not been a change in price, but there is a change in demand. So what happens when that happens is we draw a new demand curve. So if the demand increases, we move the curve to the right. We move the curve to the left if demand decreases. And if you look in the Tucker book, there are a lot of graphs on pages 56 and 57 that explain this. So what can cause that curve to move to the right? So for example, think about on a typical 70-degree day, Frosty Boy might sell 100 cups of ice cream. But on a warm day, when the Little League baseball teams are playing, they might sell 200 cups of ice cream, even though the price is the same on the cold day and the warm day, or on the regular day and the warm day. On a cold day, they might only sell 20, even though the price is the same. So the price stays constant, but the demand for the goods changes. The number of goods we sell change. So this is a change in demand. The demand curve moves to the right when we sell more at the same price, and it moves to the left when we sell less. And so this can get really confusing, and so we'll talk about difference in change in demand versus quantity demanded in a bit. Why does that change? Why does the demand curve move? There are generally 5 reasons why. Number 1, more buyers. Think about here in New Palestine where we live. As the population has grown, and our community has really grown in population, what has happened to the demand for goods in our community? Is it more or is it less? Even take a better example. Go up the road to Fishers. Fishers 40 years ago was a very tiny community. Today it is one of the 10 largest cities in Indiana. Is the demand for goods higher or lower than it was 40 years ago? And so As the population grows, you have more people to buy things. Therefore, you're going to have more demand. You're going to have more people going to the grocery store. You're going to have more people going to the gas station. You're going to have more people in line at the restaurant. And so the number of buyers will lead to an increase in demand. More people going to the grocery store than before, even though their prices are the same. More people going to the restaurant than before, even though the prices are the same. A second is tastes and preferences. When things are in style, we're more likely to buy them. My kids grew up during the age of the fidget spinner, and some of you might have experienced this as well. And for about 6 months, the fidget spinner was the hottest thing there was. My kids couldn't get enough of them, and you could find them everywhere online. You could go to the store, and there would be kiosks in the mall, in the middle of the mall, selling fidget spinners. You could buy deluxe ones that were really expensive. You could buy super cheap ones. Fidget spinners were the rage for about 6 months. Then people got really tired of them, and then the fad went away. So when things are in style, demand increases. When things are not in style, obviously the demand will decrease. And we see this with clothes and things like that. Our taste and preferences change over time. Also changes in income. And there's a couple of things we'll look at here with changes in income that this is a really important distinction to make. Normal goods versus inferior goods. For normal goods, there is a direct relationship between changes in income and changes in demand. Think about, is the demand going to be higher in a city like Carmel, where the net income for most people is very high, or a city, and I don't want to pick on a town, but a city that has really struggled, maybe has had a major factory close, has experienced some difficulty. And so maybe a city like, and I don't want to pick on them because it's a great town, but a city like Anderson. Anderson has had factories close. They've really, because of that, have seen a dramatic loss in the income in the community. And so because of that, a lot of stores and things closed in Anderson because there was less demand for goods, because people did not have as much income as they did before. And we eventually saw a lot of the stores in their mall close and a lot of restaurants close because there was less demand, because there's a direct relationship between income and demand. And meanwhile, you go over to Carmel, and as the incomes in Carmel have risen, the demand for goods has risen. Now, that's for normal goods, which we would consider most goods. Now, for what we refer to as inferior goods, which are usually low price but generally perceived to be lower quality goods, demand actually increases when people's income drops. And the reason why is they might normally say, go buy things at Macy's or buy things at the mall. But instead, they're going to go to Walmart now because Walmart is cheaper. The goods may not be perceived to be as high of a quality, but they're cheaper. They'll go there, or they'll go to Dollar General, where again, the goods are cheaper than they are at Macy's or a bigger, quote unquote, more prestigious store. And this is not, again, to rip on Walmart, but understand that this is what happens during a recession, is that as incomes drop, the demand for inferior goods goes up. And the reason why is those are people who are substituting inferior goods for normal goods. And people who would normally maybe spend a little bit more to buy at least the perception of higher quality are now going to buy the lower priced good, even though they perceive it to be inferior to the higher priced good. And so often what happens is during recessions, Walmart's demand, their income goes up, their sales go up, as do places like Dollar General during recessions, because people have less income. So changes in income for normal goods, there's a relationship. As people's income goes down, the demand for goods goes down. But for inferior goods, it's the opposite. As people's incomes come down, the demand actually increases because of the fact that people are substituting inferior goods for normal goods when they have less money. The other thing that will cause a change in demand are prices of related goods, and we break this up into substitutes and complements. For substitutes, an increase in the price of one good or the increase in the usage of one good can affect demand for another. So, for example, as more people began to use Netflix and stream their movies, they stopped going to video rental stores. And now there is a one Blockbuster Video in the United States when they used to be in every community. If you wanted to go watch a movie, you went to your local Blockbuster and you rented the movie for the night, you brought it home, you watched it, and then you returned it the next day. Well, now with Netflix, you don't even have to do that. You can just sit and stream it on your net-top box. Spotify has done the same thing to compact discs. And we can also think about things like hamburger versus chicken. If the price of chicken is $3 a pound and the price of hamburger is $3.50, more people are going to buy chicken. If the price of hamburger drops to $2.50, the quantity demanded for hamburger increases. The demand for hamburger has not, because we're sliding down the same demand curve. But the price of chicken stays at $3 because more people are buying hamburger instead of chicken. The demand for chicken drops because the substitute good has become cheaper. So the quantity of hamburger demanded goes up, but the demand for chicken goes down, even though there has not been a change in price. Meanwhile, a complement will increase the demand for a good. So the change in the use of one good will lead to a change in the use of something else. So for example, if you're having a cookout, you're going to buy hamburger. Well, you need to fire up the grill, so you may be more likely to buy charcoal. So if more people are demanding or buying hamburgers, they're also going to buy more charcoal as well. So those things are complements. Netflix, come back to this one, you got to have something to watch Netflix on. And yes, many of you watch Netflix on your phones or your computers, but a lot of us as well like to watch movies on our TVs or our home theaters. Well, we've got to have something to show that. So to make our Netflix subscription really, really work, I need a smart TV. I need a Roku. I need an Apple TV or a Fire Stick or a Chromecast. And so the increased sales of Netflix or Hulu also lead to the increase in sales of those set-top boxes like Roku's or Apple TVs or smart TVs. They're complements. The use of one increases the use of another. One of my jobs, I cover the Colts. I go to every Colts home game, and I cover it for a national radio network. And so one thing I notice is when I'm downtown, there's increased use of the parking lots on the south side of downtown. There's increased use of the restaurants on the south side of downtown because people want to go eat before they go to the game. So people going to the game using Lucas Oil Stadium, the demand for the parking lots and restaurants also goes up on those days, even if the price has not changed. Matter of fact, even at a higher price, the demand goes up. And so travel and gasoline. What do you think is going to happen to the demand for gasoline in New Pal on the Friday before spring break? I could tell you what happens because the entire town empties out and relocates to Florida. People are gassing up the cars and going, or they're at least gassing up the cars to drive to the airport to fly, but the demand for gasoline goes up on the 3 or 4 days before spring break because people are getting ready to drive and travel. And so the use of one good leads to the use of another. Sony just came out with the PlayStation 5. As they sell more consoles, obviously, more games are going to be sold as well. The demand for new PS5 consoles will lead to an increased demand for PS5 games. Now, then those substitute for PS4 games, and so you're going to see less demand for the PS4 and less demand for the PS4 games because those are substitutes. The PS5 replaces the PS4. And so the console and the games are complements, and the previous generation they replace become substitutes. And so that is what causes a change in demand. Even with no change in price, there are more people buying something, or there's less people buying something as well. So hopefully you have a good idea of demand. One thing I want to touch on as well is and we've already touched on this here, is the kind of the concept of demand versus quantity demanded. Remember that if the price changes, it's a change in quantity demanded. We slide up and down the same demand curve, so therefore demand does not change. If the price does not change, but something else does, if the price doesn't change, but the demand does, we call that a change in demand. More people or fewer people are buying a good at the same price as before. That is a change in demand. It can be really confusing. Keep those two separate. If it's a change in price, it's a change in quantity. We're sliding up and down the curve. If it's a change in any factor besides price, then the price stays the same. It's a change in demand. And we draw a new curve, either increasing to the right or decreasing to the left. So hopefully you understand that. Thanks for watching.